Hello everybody and welcome to Green Star Trading with me Tom, and welcome to episode 4 of an introduction to Elliott wave theory. In this episode we're going to be looking at triangle patterns. This is a slight change of plans from what I originally planned for episode 4, where we were going to look at double and triple zigzags known as WXY and WXYZ. The reason I've changed my mind and decided to cover triangles is that the X wave in those future patterns we're going to look at can be comprised of any corrective structure, including the zigzag we covered in episode 2, the flat patterns we covered in episode 3, and the triangle patterns we're about to cover now in episode 4, plus the WXY and WXYZ itself that we will cover in a future video. So I want you going into that future video of the most complex form of corrective pattern in my opinion, with all of the potential corrective patterns prior already in your mind. This will make that episode easy to understand. So without further ado, let's get on with our current episode about triangle patterns. Now, we have over here our guidelines. A triangle is constructed of 5 waves labelled with letters using A, B, C, D and E, as you can see over here. A, B, C, D, E. The subwave structure of each of these 5 waves is free, meaning that the total subwave structure is free, 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 as such. So, instead of the more complicated patterns you're used to identifying 5-3-5 or 3-3-5 such as in the flat, you are simply looking for a subwave count of 3 waves in each leg. Let's turn that off. Now, there are no specific Fibonacci relationships between the waves inside a triangle. So unlike other waves which we've observed, such as your impulse wave and your corrective waves, flat and zigzag, which have Fibonacci relationships between the different waves in terms of their wavelength, there is no such parameters for a triangle. However, each successive wave must be smaller than the prior if you're in a contracting pattern, or larger in an expanding pattern. So what do I mean by that? Well, we need to come to our collection of triangles we have here in the center of our screen, and I've written both bullish and bearish to show you how the price action would enter and exit the triangle formation, plus also the actual formation of the triangle itself. So first we have our ascending pattern. Now in this case the triangle's top will be a flat line, a horizontal line, and the bottom line will be an ascending line at a diagonal angle. Each wave in this ascending triangle, the B will be shorter than the A, the C will be shorter than the B, the D will be shorter than the C, and the E will be shorter than the D. So we're following the rule for each successive wave must be smaller than the prior in a contracting pattern. So although we're not obsessing or looking or following any specific Fibonacci relationship between these waves, we're simply following the rule that each successive wave in the pattern of a contracting triangle, such as a descending triangle, must be smaller than the prior wave. This is the same in both the bullish and the bearish case, and this rule applies to ascending, symmetrical, and descending triangles. Now, the other rule was, or larger in an expanding pattern. Well, in an expanding pattern, as we have here at the bottom, each successive wave must be larger than the prior wave. So that's nice and simple. So let's just take the symmetrical example we have over here. As we don't have a straight line at the top or the bottom, both lines are slowly moving towards one another. So we are still following the rule that each wave must be smaller than the prior wave. So simply put, each wave cannot extend beyond the point of where the prior wave ended. It must finish before the prior wave where the prior wave ended. So the C must complete higher than where the A finished, and the D must complete lower from where the B finished, and the E higher from where the C finished, and so on and so forth in a contracting pattern. Now, it's important to note the difference between the bullish setup and the bearish setup of each of these patterns, as there tends to be a bias in Elliott wave users between which patterns suit bullish and bearish setups. Now, there may be some biases and there may be some statistical data to suggest that certain triangles are more likely to occur inside of a bullish or bearish trend. However, I have to make it absolutely clear that any kind of these ascending, symmetrical, descending or expanding triangles can occur in both bullish and bearish overall trends. Now, for example, in the bullish trend, the price moves up to, in the case of an ascending triangle, to the horizontal trend which will form the top of the triangle. We do not count this first resistance, this first reversal or pivot from the price coming up and coming down, we do not count this as the A. The A is the first rebound after the reversal of the trend's direction. If the trend is up, we have a pivot down and then a further pivot up. That was our A. We then proceed to count the bullish trend coming up into the triangle, A up the first pivot of the bottom of the triangle, B back up the horizontal line, C on the diagonal, D on the horizontal, E on the diagonal, and then we should break out through this overhead resistance and continue our pattern or our overall bullish trend to the upside. So the opposite is true with the bearish trend. It's the reversal from the downtrend back to the uptrend to the horizontal line, with forming the A before coming down to the diagonal of the B. This is where this first pivot, down, up, and then down again, this is where our A is. And then B on the diagonal, C on the horizontal, D on the diagonal, E on the horizontal, and then we come down and break the diagonal trend to continue falling lower. Now, like I said, although there may be a statistical bias between which triangle occurs in the trend, you must keep an open mind that any kind of triangle can occur. So, you now understand how the bullish pattern and the bearish patterns play out inside of these different triangle structures. So let's have a look at our next rule. The triangle normally occurs in a wave 4 of a motive wave or a wave B of a corrective wave. So for example, I have here the wave 4 of this motive wave, of our impulse wave here, I have as a symmetrical triangle, which is our main example over here, where we have two diagonal trend lines closing in to the end of the wave 4, with the A, B, C, D, E, each respectively being shorter than the prior wave. Now, this is quite common. You can see a symmetrical triangle on the wave 4. You can see any of these, but in my personal experience, I would be expecting to see an ascending triangle or a symmetrical triangle in the wave 4. These patterns, which people recognize without Elliott wave theory, can often be used on their own. If you see an ascending triangle, this is in an upward trend. This is always going to be considered bullish. An ascending triangle in a bearish trend can be seen as a continuation, but it could also be seen as a reversal, possibly without referring to the Elliott wave count. So this is why you have to keep an open mind, and the more certain you are of the trend you're in, the more certain you're going to be of its continuation. So let's take for example a pattern which could appear quite tricky, which is the B wave of a corrective ABC structure. Now in this case we have an ascending triangle but actually continue a downward trend. Like I said, it could be any pattern. This could easily confuse a person if we were just looking at the ascending triangle itself without counting the wave structure within it. This would be very likely to convince an individual that we were about to reverse, that we were reversing and climbing higher before breaking out to the upside. So learning the patterns and the shapes is important, and they are good guidelines, but you must know where you are in the overall trend. But knowing the wave count of the triangle and understanding how it enters and leaves the triangle inside of that trend will make things much clearer for you. Now that's really all there is to it. Triangles are a simpler pattern. They're very easy to identify. They have very strict rules in terms of each wave must be shorter than the other, and therefore you can immediately identify very soon on in the corrective structure whether or not you are looking at a triangle. For example, in the symmetrical pattern, if the B, let's just switch off the lock here for a moment. Now if the B were to extend to this level here, then this could be a structure with a straight a horizontal line and a diagonal ascending line. So this could be an ascending triangle. However, if the wave C were to extend beyond the A, this is not a triangle and it's game over straight away. So you knew very early on. Now, if we come down to form a resistance support here and bounce up beyond where this wave, the A wave began, this is not a triangle, regardless of what the C does. And so it's very quick to identify where you are in time and space regarding a triangle. None of these waves can extend beyond the prior waves. You know, the only exception is if you're in an expanding triangle here, which is the B is larger, but then each successive wave has to be larger. So the same again, the B can be larger than the A, but then if the C fails to expand to create this expansive structure that we'd expect to see in an expanding triangle, okay, like this, if the C would have failed to make that before moving back up, that's not an expanding triangle. So you can find out very quickly, essentially, where you are in time and space and what kind of corrective structure you're looking at. And then you should know very soon on whether you're looking at a triangle if you simply follow these rules of each successive wave being smaller in a contracting pattern or larger in an expanding pattern. Anyway, that's it guys. Thank you for joining me on this episode 4 of an introduction to Elliot wave theory. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and smash that like button. If you're a continuous viewer of the channel, keep smashing the like button anyway. And let me know in the comments what you think of this series, if you like how I'm doing it. Or if you have any suggestions, or if you have any points you would like to make, or any queries you want that you didn't quite understand, and I will try and get back to you. Anyway, take care guys, and I will speak to you soon. Bye bye.